Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Unite Mathcast, an insight into the objective and subjective mathematics of Pokemon Unite. Before we begin, this podcast is sponsored by UniteDB, the foremost authority on the mathematics and formulas, hidden within Pokemon Unite, but more on them later. Today on the Mathcast, we have a special batch of guests, starting with World Champion Lazadin.
Hello.
World's commentator Spragels.
Whoa, look at all the crabs.
World's commentator Zoinks.
I'm working on the mustache. I'm sorry.
And world's commentator Doobsnax.
I have my calculator and Spragels has crabs ready to go.
And of course, me, Math Geek. Hi. We at the Math Court believe seeing the same image through different perspectives allows us to see a more complete picture of the truth. So I brought on 4 particularly interesting perspectives today to talk about Unite. Today's topic is the World's Championship. Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Doing good.
Great.
Doing good.
Feeling great, Matthew.
I'm very glad to hear.
Doing good.
So, as I said in the intro, 3 of you were commentators for Worlds. Very interesting position to be in. Tell me a little bit about what happened. I got to know a little bit. Give us the industry secrets.
The
Industry,
inside
they give us a call, right? And we went and we're like, hey, let's cast this thing. And they're like, okay, let's do that. So that's kind of the long and the short of it. I'm sure Zoinks and Spragels can flavor it up a little bit more.
Yeah. It was exciting, obviously. It was a bit of a dream come true to be able to do that. I felt like we did find out pretty late that we would be doing it, but we ended up finding out that we would be the ones heading out there, as well as Japan and Korea. It was very cool to be there in person. I know there were some moments on the broadcast that were maybe a little chaotic, but being there, it felt pretty, I don't know, felt like everything was pretty great, pretty under control, even though they had some technical issues and stuff like that on day one. So it was a blast.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Time of my life, honestly. I'm sure we'll talk about broadcast stuff and issues with it on this episode eventually. But realistically, I just need to put that out there. No one felt that problem more than the 3 of us and Jeff. and production, of course. Like,
Yep.
It may have seemed rough on stream. There was a lot of people working very, very hard to try to fix those issues. So first year is going to have its bumps in the road for sure.
Let me
Oh,
tell
yeah,
you
of course.
who wasn't working hard to fix any problems, and that was me. Because at some point, Zoinks and Jeff were on the casting desk for a long time. I didn't have anything to do, and no one was coming to me like, hey, do you know how to plug in cables or something? So to be fair, I wasn't working super hard to fix anything.
Yeah, Spragels and I were just sitting off to the side, taking pictures with people, hanging out. We'd chime in like, hey, do you think they need us? And then we'd get waved off. I'm like, okay, I guess we'll just hang out and drink soda or whatever. So, I mean, it ended up being Zoinks and Jeff having to run it. It was about 2 hours. I mean, it was a long time.
They crushed it.
Oh, without a
it was
doubt.
it was a heroic marathon session while we were trying to figure out some very interesting problems with the broadcast.
So what kind of issues did you see on your side? Because on our side, we definitely saw, so there was a bit of technical complications. But I'm curious, like, how the perspective would have been different being there.
Oh, that's really
so-
interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Kirk.
Oh, what I was going to say is, without being of technical sound, without any technical inclinations, what was going on seemed, one, incredibly complicated, and also seemed to be dealt with a thing that nobody's ever had to deal with before, specifically in Pokemon, because it's always 1v1, same systems moving forward. But in this particular, obviously they had the great stage, it looked amazing, but they were trying to usher in people, different players using different modes of playing between the Switch and mobile, and it's 5 people on each team, so you're not just dealing on the 1v1 that every other game deals with, right? You're dealing 5v5, and every single individual has their own thing. So I think it was just compounding interest, and honestly, I think it was just a huge learning curve of how does this get done, because you can theory craft the best way to put it together, right? But in practice, it doesn't always go that way, and then you throw in the random wrench that, somebody might walk by and trip over a cord, unplug half the stuff, and you're trying to scramble and get everything put back together. So from a non-technically savvy person, it seemed daunting from the outside looking in. I can't even imagine what it was like in it.
That's fair. Yeah, as with my limited experience in technical environments, like when I was in high school, I used to do like a lot of tech related stuff for like musicals and for plays and all of that. So it wasn't quite the same amount of thing, but it definitely has like similar aspects when you're coming to miking people up and being able to make sure that everything connects correctly, especially if you have the audience listening in on the commentators as well, which I believe was the case for Worlds. In that case, being able to have everything working correctly is just an absolute magic trick. It's very easy for one small thing to go wrong and then it to compound into a much bigger problem.
Yeah, as a person who, like, I work my full-time job involves a lot of, like, the hardware side of IT. So I did, like, understand a lot of the issues they're going with. A huge, like, technical issue that we ran into a lot on day one was trying to bridge the gap in a game that has multiple inputs. So that is Switch and mobile. When you're doing so, it is, well, one, impossible to do a LAN environment in the current technology that we have when you're trying to bridge a Nintendo Switch and a mobile. There is no way to LAN hub those two things. It's literally impossible. So we were working around that. There were some issues in that region, like literal Switch and just Unite hardware that were a problem that I think were bound to happen no matter what. We got them solved pretty easily. And I think day two went a lot better. It had a couple of issues too, but like in comparison to day one, I think day two was much more just a solid show.
Oh, absolutely. Day two was great. Day one, it was weird because we had the issues that they knew would be something to figure out. And then, of course, like anything, something weird goes wrong and no one has any idea what the problem is. I don't even know if we're allowed to talk about what the problem is, but I will say that I think it's very funny that I jokingly guessed the problem and everyone lied to me like it wasn't the problem. I'm sorry that I have to be so vague, but it was pretty impressive that I guessed what happened.
A shared stage created interesting things we had to overcome.
Yeah, I think that I don't know what information you have that's privileged or not, so I'm not going to press you on the specifics. I'm not actually.
Fine, it was Jeff Hoagland. Jeff ruined it. Gosh.
I mean, that's why he's not here right now. We had to kick him off because of all of the trouble he caused when he was a commentator. Obviously, yeah. No, he just wasn't available for this week. But yeah, I'm not sure if this is something you're allowed to answer in the first place. But did they make you sign an NDA for anything? Were there things that you are explicitly not allowed to say based on a contract, or
no?
Okay, so
I didn't sign it. Well, maybe actually. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. So, Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
We did, right?
For your own betterment. Yes, we did.
I do remember there was a couple of issues with the NDA and people not reading it, but I do at least the World's players were.
I mean, we have a perfect example right here of somebody not reading the NDA.
Hey, listen, man, I didn't know what that paper was called.
At least he's not the one that he's not the one that tweeted out like a bunch of information that we were explicitly told to.
Oh my gosh,
that was true.
That is true.
Well, since it's already public information, we're allowed talking about it, right?
Yeah.
But
well,
yeah,
actually, we can't say anything else except we went to Worlds and we may have commentated. That's the most we can say.
We're essentially secret agents. I don't know if you knew this, but we're like secret agents.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can say yes, I was in Siberia at the time. No, I have no idea about the supervillain that was killed then.
True.
I may or may not have been at his compound that day.
Pretty much. Yep, that's what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. We've done nothing ever wrong. I think is what we're getting at.
Flawless specimens of humankind, yeah.
That's what we strive for.
I agree.
Anyways.
That's what we strive for.
So yeah, before we actually started recording, you guys were talking about you're talking about like visa issues that teams had and everything. There was it 3 teams that weren't able to go to Worlds because of visa issues?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So what kind of issues did you guys experience regarding... What, sorry?
I said 2 of them were in my group.
So you had a very easy group. You got out of groups pretty easily?
No, because they had to move iCloud over.
Makes sense, yeah.
Although, well, we'll get to that section later.
But yeah, so did you guys have any issues with with getting into the country, or I actually don't. So actually, I just realized I don't actually know where Worlds happened. Was it London or was it Japan? I don't actually know.
Dude, Math Geek's
It
head
was
is in the
London.
numbers, dude. Yeah, it was in London.
Okay, because like I just realized that off of my head I just paused. I'm like, wait a second. I remember I read at some point, but I didn't have the information like deep in my head. Like I couldn't pull out the correct thread. So did you have any issues with COVID related stuff when you went to London?
No, all the restrictions are off. I mean, as long as you had your passport in time, because we're all from the United States or North America. So as long as you had your passport in time, it was pretty Fisher Price. I mean, there was no real concern from our standpoint.
Were there no work visa issues? Because even if you're like commentating, that's still considered employment, right?
Not for the length of time that we're there.
Okay.
So
Yep.
yeah, as a person who's been through a lot of visa stuff in my life, like moving from Canada back to forth between the States and work visas and things like that, yeah, this is not a issue if you're from an approved country, basically. So every country has relationships with other countries that determine how fast or how easy it is to get a visa. London has a list. A lot of North America is on the easy list. Some of it is not. And a lot of the South America countries are on those lists. So it's just tough to get into the UK if you are from a lot of South American countries. And that's what they ran into.
And let me tell you, I'm glad it was easy, because I don't know what I would have done. I was telling Doobsnax before I went that my passport was expired and I needed to get it fixed in time. Turns out I was incorrect. It wasn't expired at all. So I don't think I could handle something that was difficult.
Even the slightest complication is just way too much effort to have to deal with. So
I'm already making it hard.
yeah. Any other interesting stories related to? I mean, so there are things you can't talk about that happened at the broadcast, but I assume that you guys were also there longer than just literally. Like, you didn't fly in and land the minute World started. Did you do anything else interesting when you were there?
I actually had already been to London before a few years prior, so I didn't feel incredibly locked into, doing a bunch of touristy stuff in London. So my wife, daughter, and I, we just got to kind of hang out and do things at our own pace and really enjoy Pokemon Worlds itself without feeling like, hey, we're missing this opportunity in being in another country. So that was nice. And then we went to Scotland for a week right after, so that was also super duper cool.
I did kind of the opposite. I came in a couple of days early, and I just lived it up in London. I'd never been there. I love that city. I love it so much. We explored a ton. I think I walked like 10 miles a day. And then even when the event started, I definitely was at the venue for when I needed to be, but when I wasn't, I was out exploring London quite a bit. So that was that. I did kind of the opposite. I loved that city.
Yeah, I got to explore it a bit. It was very fun. We were there for an extra 2 days or something, me and my wife, so we got to check some things out. I had good fish and chips. I ate at a Gordon Ramsay restaurant. I saw Big Ben, lots of stuff like that. Very touristy, but it was a great time. And then I did spend a lot of time at Pokemon Worlds because it was just really... It was pretty amazing. I've been to some conventions, not a ton. I've been to like Star Wars Celebration and stuff like that. So it really felt like a pretty amazing event. It felt like Disneyland for Pokemon. It was awesome.
What Gordon Ramsay restaurant did you eat at, Spragels?
I wish I could remember the name. I'll try to look it up. Something Kitchen.
Cutthroat Kitchen. Oh wait, that's a different one.
Is it by like a church?
Ooh.
Like, do you have to like walk by a big cathedral?
He has a few
Maybe.
in,
Get there.
in the city, I know, but yeah.
Yeah, I went to a kitchen one too.
By the way,
which is why I asked.
Train system in London, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I live in Los
Oh, yeah.
Angeles and we have nothing at all like this. And in London, you go everywhere on it. It's so freaking great.
I'm from Chicago, and Chicago's is great, but yeah, London was like a step above that too. It was awesome.
Yeah, the London Underground is just so impressive to me.
Mm-hmm. There was some strikes and things like that made complications around like on the tournament days. But other than that, like especially when I went early, it was awesome. Love that train system.
Hedden Street Kitchen is where I went.
Hedden Street Kitchen?
Yeah.
Okay, I went to Bread Street Kitchen.
Dang, we're this close.
Yeah, extremely.
It's pretty much the same thing, except for a different street entirely.
I think so.
I mean, it sounds right to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure GR's fine with it. They got him running both ways, so it doesn't matter.
It's in Piccadilly
Not even a big
Circus.
Not a big deal.
It's right by the Piccadilly Circus stop, which is just what a great name.
I know.
Great name. Terrific.
Circus
Piccadilly
is an
everything.
incredible name for anything. And then you got Piccadilly on top of there. Come on, you guys are just having fun now.
Exactly. So yeah. Then what else? Do we want to talk about actual games, what actually happened at Worlds itself?
Hey, it's your show. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm happy.
It's our show
let's
together.
do it.
We are
Whatever
doing
you
this
want to
together.
do, we're
Oh,
on
boy.
your gondola. You just keep singing, and we'll keep hanging out.
So, like, what do you guys think about the actual games themselves? There
they're
are definitely
awesome.
some notable games for sure.
You know what? Even the ones that looked one-sided still ended up being very good, in my opinion. So, like, even the 800 points to nothing. Like, just seeing a 0 on the big stage is huge.
Yeah.
So that was big, but of course there were so many close games and so many shakeups. I don't think we could have asked for much more out of a showing from the World Championships than we got, especially because of everybody poo-pooing different regions and not giving respect where it was so clearly deserved, in my opinion. So having these teams show up and show out was exactly what I was hoping for, and it totally delivered, in my opinion.
Yeah, without question. I mean, getting into the Final Four and it being North America, EU, Japan, and APAC was just so cool because it really showed how good every region was at this game. And there were some that I wish, would have got farther so we would have got to see them play more. I think the group stage was just a little too short, but wow, some insane games. I know Zoinks and Jeff got to cover Black Hand Renaissance, which had some amazing moments, and Doobsnax and there were two games that just popped in my head right away outside of, incredible things like grand finals. We got to do a game with Revenant Esports where they really needed to get some life back in their tournament, and they had this game 2 against, I'm blanking on it now. Who was it, T2?
I think it was T2.
Yeah. Oh, what a game. It just felt like they finally, everything clicked on that team. They figured out what they were doing. They were back in this thing. Such an amazing game, too. And then Secret Ship had a must-win game with the craziest
game
finale.
2? Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It was so beautiful.
The Cramorant scoring in the literal last second, giving them the it was within 5 points or something stupid like that. Like, everybody scoring got the exact amount they needed to win. Oh,
Yeah, it was a 6-point margin. It was an absolute just fiesta of point scoring and just everything lighting up on the screen that you could ever want. Like I said, I think every game delivered. Even when I wasn't, when Jeff and Zoinks were casting, I was watching a lot of the B stage games and just kind of hanging out in that competitive area. And some of those off-screen games, were just so good too. And I don't know what the plan is. Obviously, there's some footage out there. I don't know what the story is there. But it would be so cool to see some of those because you had amazing showdowns between.
Let me tell you, thinking of an amazing
iClan.
showing, it was No Show and Black Hand early on the B stage. Oh my goodness, those were great games because if I remember right, game 1 Black Hand stomps, and then game 2 I think it's close, and then No Show takes it. Of a counter push or something like that, and then game 3 Black Hand is able to sew it up. But that was a really cool series to see.
Yep.
I really, really want to know what happened between T2 and Renaissance.
Yeah.
That's my big thing.
That would have been an
Because
awesome game to
I
have.
looked at those team comps after, and I was just like, what on earth was this? I'm just so curious as to how that actually played out.
Shout out to Unite API
my
for
perspective is
giving
a
us
bit
those comps for sure.
True. My perspective is obviously a bit different. I spent a lot of my time I wasn't in London, but I spent most of my time actually rewatching games, right? I would take very extensive notes on what everybody did, how they played out their early games, that sort of thing. I actually don't think my opinion of the regions has changed much. They're a bit closer than I give it credit for, especially APAC is better. But I think overall, I think we had it pretty much on the money. Although, don't get me wrong, everything was really, really good. But you had like a lot of very unfortunate incidents. Like, for example, IX, their primary player, and then their secondary carry had COVID that day. Like there was a whole bunch of shit like that went on. It was really unfortunate.
Yeah, but I mean
Which
that has nothing to do with the competitive integrity of the series, right? Like if somebody, you know what I mean? Like if somebody gets COVID, obviously that's unfortunate. And if somebody is wiling out on their socials to the point where the company thinks they have to do something about it to protect their image. I mean, at the end of the day, Pokemon is a child's game, so they're going to protect their brand image over anyone.
Something Rin.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I understand why that happened.
Yeah.
But I will say that my opinion hasn't changed much.
Your opinion on the quality of play in the regions, is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
And like which regions are best and all that.
Well, I mean, I think we saw which region was best on the day without question. So I think maybe I'm wrong here, but what I've found in Pokemon Unite and from watching this tournament is the cream of the crop is better than the top, few percent of the game by a wide margin. So I think while Blackhand is dominant, and they dominated, while Blackhand is dominant, I don't know that IX was that close to them.
Yeah.
So
IX,
if that makes sense. So like I think
agree.
Nouns was dominant. I don't know if Apprentice was that close to them. And that's just kind of what it felt like watching this is like, oh wow, one team in these regions got really good. Really good.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, but you say that like that, but if you take a look, the two teams that gave Blackhand the hardest time the entire tournament were Renaissance and Iclan. Those were their two closest series. Fact. Actual fact of the matter.
But on the other hand, though, like
Iclan was close for a very different reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I'm just saying the two closest matches they have were those two regions. And that is not two regions that if you would have said at any given point in time who would have given the team that wins the championship the hardest time, those two regions would not have come across your lips. Don't even tell me they would have.
I mean, that's fair.
I mean,
it's fair because it's true. Because I'm not making stuff up. It's not even conjecture. It's just what it is.
Like, that's part of the problem.
I could have beat those teams without trying. No big deal.
True.
Of course.
I can definitely respect them. Like they all obviously worked very hard, and there was a clear improvement, especially in Icon especially. It was very, very much a lot better than they were at their regional final. But I have my opinions as someone who had to very, very carefully analyze every single game, right?
Yeah, so like you know better than pretty much everybody else as to what the strengths and weaknesses of at least each team as they fought your team was. But do you think that there's any like dark horse strategies that didn't really like present as well as you'd expect, but still might be worthwhile exploring? Like, I know we're about to go into the preseason, so we're about to get a million different changes, but like one of the big things, for example, was a while ago the whole score comp thing being one of those. It's not the meta here, but it's one of those things that can perform very well in different contexts. Did you see anything kind of like that in Worlds? That sounds like a big fat no.
I think that everybody showed their best cards. I think that if they didn't, then that would be very strange. I guess Sacred Ship kind of. I don't know what hands they were playing with, but I think everybody was a bit confused by that. But other than that, yeah, I think everybody showed their best cards. I don't think anybody held anything back strategy-wise. We did have some sort of very interesting, like, guard chomp thing that we were going to do, but we never ended up doing. But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely strategies that showed up. I mean, Snorlax really was like a giant surprise for a lot of people and how strong it was recently. We were talking about this on my show too. Machamp flopped like so hard There was so much
yeah.
gas on Machamp leading up to the event. Like, a lot of people thought that character was going to be so strong, and it was not. Like, it just did not make any moves. Not a single Machamp ult went where it needed to go. It was interesting. But yeah, so Serena just kind of stayed as the top pick in that role. So that was interesting. So I guess the Machamp strategy, which I thought would be pretty good, but yeah, I don't think it really came to fruition. So to answer your question, Math Geek, I think that's a strategy that didn't just quite work out as well as I think people thought it would.
That's fair. I want to go see if I can go pull up the value that Emma gave us a little bit ago that had like the list of all Mons at Worlds and how good they were at different things.
Percentage pick and win percentage too, you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I will
book
say-
with
Emma Sky
100%
posted
on
them earlier,
Cinderace,
so-
and it was booked with 100% on Cinderace and Overlord with 100% on Greninja, right? Were the two Pokemon with 100%?
Yeah, with the,
Not a bad rate. Nah.
Oh my, that comp.
It worked. It worked really well.
It's like that old thing that says if it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid.
Well, yeah, you're right.
Slash has already told the story on his stream of the events that led to that comp being picked. It was amusing, to say the least.
Whoa. Okay, something that's really amusing here that I just pulled up from... So, obvious credit where credit is due. But the big notable thing here, Serena obviously had the highest pick rate, but had a below 50% win rate. Wow.
Yep.
Who'd have expected it? But to be fair, that's mirror matches is the big obvious one.
Yeah.
But
It was
that
kind
also
of the
does mean
star
that...
of the show in a lot of ways. I mean, every team was doing everything they could. Not every single team, but most teams were doing everything they could to make their Zarina into a hyper carry, and it was doing pretty well.
But what that does mean, though, is that because that had lost more than it won, there are some matches that were not mirror matches, and Serena lost more than they won those,
Yes.
which is really interesting.
In
like,
particular, we only ran Serena twice, and that was against IX. Yeah. Obviously, Overlord Serena is absolutely insane, but we just found more success on better early game characters.
Yeah, that's fair. Numbers here, looking at like Snorlax and Aegislash, seem like they're stupidly overperforming.
Yeah, they did well. I think a lot of people didn't know how to play against Snorlax that well, and it was setting up some really amazing plays.
Credit where credit is due. Blossom Snorlax was absolutely insane.
So good.
It was on a different level. Like, I don't think anyone's Snorlax really came close to how well Blossom was playing it. Yeah, I think there's a few like superstars that really rose up when hitting the world stage. Obviously, my MVP of the event is going to be Overlord, but like everyone in listening to this and talking in this already knew that he was one of the best players in the world, obviously. But I think he rose up. I think Blossom, we all knew he was good, but we didn't maybe know that he was this good on the world stage. So I think they really came to fruition in a huge way. And then, I mean, Mame. Of course. I said that guy's name so much on broadcast, but he really was just unbelievable. They just hyper fed that player and it paid off. So that was really cool to see. Anyway, those are the three, I think, like superstars that emerged from this, from this event in my mind.
I feel bad. I'm blanking on the Gardevoir player from Renaissance.
Kamiro.
Kamiro,
so amazing. And nobody really knew how to counter it. I'm kind of shocked they switched off of it in that second game against Blackhand. It made no sense to me at all.
So Renaissance does this thing where they will, if they see you picking an 80 carry jungler, they'll switch to Absol.
So it's just hard counter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did hear a bit about that. It just makes no sense to me when game one went the way game one did. And for people who don't know what I'm talking about, so game one, Blackhand versus Renaissance. Renaissance essentially won game one, and Blackhand got a miracle.
Yeah. Yes and no.
I mean, Ben, you could say all you
I
want.
don't know.
That
There's
game, they
no way.
will-
No. You're out of your mind.
Give me a
Let's
second.
pull.
Give
Can
me
we
a
pull the
second.
tape? Let's get the tape.
Give me a second.
Yeah, let me
I will
go
explain
pull up
myself.
Blackhand
I will
versus
explain
Renaissance
myself,
here.
okay?
I'll go.
So, yes, obviously they performed extremely dominantly, and none of the team fights were remotely close. However, that Machamp steal should not have won the game, and that Machamp should have even been alive to steal.
Yeah, no, you were right. They totally made a mistake. They
They made
targeted
5
the
mistakes.
Machamp instead of
Yes.
But the whole 9.5 minutes.
They played their
for sure.
so
Well, wait. Like, so if
one?
if that's the excuse you're going to use for your squad losing, then you can't scrub Iclan for taking Blackhand to the wire.
All right.
hold on. I'm not.
That's
wait a
just
second.
like,
I was about to explain myself. Okay. I'm not gonna scrub Iclan. Like, obviously not. Well, I already did, but never mind. Basically, what I was trying to point out was the big mistake was because they were playing the Guardy comp. They primarily wanted the Death Ball, right? They almost always had about 4 or 5 people together, and that meant that they almost never had their tier 2 top goal defended, right? The purpose of their composition was to just stick together and keep fighting you. So what we did was we put back crap pressure on them. That way, that when the zap rolled around, we had a very clear win con. Obviously, things did not go anywhere near as well as planned. Obviously, they probably should have won that game, but there was a very clear reason they lost, and it wasn't just the Machamp.
Well, of course, I don't disagree with you at all that all the, when a zap flip or something like that happens, there are a lot of dominoes that are kind of falling to make something like that happen. I don't disagree at all. All I'm saying is if you take that game and you look at that moment, you would say that Blackhand has a, I don't know, 5% chance to win that game as that's happening. It's just a full-on flip. It was, I think, not a cross. Yeah, it was close combat that just kind of hits it. It's just like really unlikely is all I'm saying. I was shocked that they changed their comp after a game that felt like they were doing so well. I was very surprised.
I can't believe we haven't talked about my personal favorite entire game of the series was one that you two casted, which was Nouns versus T2. I think that game was amazing.
Yeah.
That was my clear favorite
so
of the
crazy.
entire tournament. That was so exciting.
Game 3 I felt was a
So
little bit
exciting.
slow, but the other games were just crazy.
Yeah.
That game 2, whoo.
Yeah, unbelievably good. And I mean, of course, I'm always going to be a little biased towards storylines, right? So it was just like, is T2 really this wonder team? It's the run back, so this is like Nouns rematch against T2, and then of course Nouns is like the home crowd. Yeah, Adesi was playing out of their mind, so it was a very, very fun match. My eyes were glued to the screen for all.
yeah, that was good.
Games.
That was very good.
So yeah,
T2 was-
really,
all
really
the T2
exciting,
matches
and
were such a pleasure.
it's such a Noun storyline too, because they're the exact kind of team that can lose early on in a tournament and crawl all the way through the losers bracket, and then beat a team that sent them down there. I mean, they're the kind of team that can do it. It was really cool to see.
Oh wow, I actually
And
didn't
I'm
even
actually
realize
just
that
gonna,
Nouns lost in
like-
round 1 and crawled all the way through the losers bracket to
Oh,
make
yeah.
it to grands.
Yep.
Holy shit.
They even lost, I think, game 1 of day 1. I think they were off to
Yeah.
a rocky
Yeah,
start. I think there were
they
some
lost.
technical problems in that game, but I think they lost game 1. Day 1.
The poke end incident.
It's a sick combo, though, Vin. It was a sick combo. But yeah, there was some incidents. But hey, they made it to second place. It was a pretty sick run for sure.
I'm just
I mean,
imagining,
Bruv
like-
Mime, right? They made it to second
my
place
God,
without
Bruv
Blissey
Mime.
at the end. Like, hello? Bruv Mime looked so good out there.
I mean,
Bruv is
to be
so
fair, yeah, Bruv is kind of insane, so.
Oh yeah, I'm being completely fair. Kid's a
I
superstar. Like, it was so
remember-
fun to watch.
Watch in like the weeks leading up to the event, just like seeing everyone trash talking Mime as a pick, like here and in like other discords, and I just like having watched like hours upon hours of footage of us versus random because they were our primary scrim partner for most of the time leading up to Worlds, and like just seeing Mime just like change shit on us, in like game after game. I mean, obviously, like it wasn't like every single game, right? But like it performed really, really well most of the time. And just like watching other people like talk about how bad Mime was just, it was so funny to me. Like once it showed up on the world stage and people were so shocked.
You know what's gonna happen.
So-
yeah, it was good.
Looking at the numbers here, there's something I find very, very interesting. How the only teams that took any games off of Blackhand both went out really early.
Yep.
Like Blackhand, I believe, lost a game to Iclan in the stages, and Iclan, lost first round bracket, and lost in loser bracket first round. And then in the actual bracket, they lost a game to No Show, who proceeded to win against Eternity, and then immediately lose in the quarterfinal losers brackets. So those are the only games that were dropped. I think Blackhand dropped a game versus iClan and won against Apprentice.
Who eliminated No Show? Was it
T2?
T2? Okay.
Yeah, it was No Show fought Eternity, then fought T2. T2 then went on to lose to Nouns in the round after that, which was the team that knocked him into losing in the first place, which I find really funny.
And then who did Nouns have to beat to get there? Was it IX that they beat in the losers?
So when Nouns went down, they had to fight iClan 2-0,
Right.
then IX 2-0,
okay,
then
IX,
T2, the team that knocked them into losers, Nouns won 2-1 because Nouns versus T2, both of those sets, both the Nouns versus T2 sets were incredibly close. They both went to game 3, and all those games I felt incredibly close all the way through. So it really could have gone either way. But what I found out also interesting is that Nouns after that, relatively poor showing in the first round, knocking off 2-0s everywhere else, except for exactly against T2 and exactly against Blackhand. They wiped the bracket 0-2, except for those two teams.
I think it's just a testament to like individual matchups in a world stage, right? So you're gonna have such different strategies that sometimes you just picked rock when they picked scissors,
exactly,
and it's gonna wipe them. Which I think Worlds definitely proved in a lot of ways. Like there are some comps that can take you by surprise, but there were just like some clear soul reads that won some games for sure.
Exactly, and I think that Nouns played that so friggin' well.
Some of the best of the world are doing that.
Oh yeah, like in the T2 set, for example, in their losers T2 set, they played like their typical, like they have like a comp that they usually play with Blissey, and they tried spicing it up in their first game, and then they lost kind of horribly in the first game against T2 in the losers bracket. They said, okay, let's kind of like counterpick them essentially, and then when they counterpicked them, they were just able to stomp the next couple of games, and it was incredible. Yeah. Honestly, just a great event overall. Everything was just, I had a lot of fun watching.
Yeah. We were talking about the quality of games and stuff before. I'm sorry, Jake, just one second. Like you two, Doobsnax and Spragels, you've casted like every single like monthly final and regional finals. I just kind of hopped in near the end, but a lot of those monthly finals, when we're casting those games, you might get like a couple of the first rounds are just going to be like, all right, like they're exciting, but they're definitely not like the most competitive. When we hit the world stage, like it right from the get-go, like every game felt so competitive. There were some stomps for sure, but it was like you could always be like, well, game 2 is going to be different. I guarantee game 2 is going to be different. Like obviously these teams earned their way to get there, whatever, but I think that the clash of styles was way more exciting than I even anticipated it was going to be in the first place, which was cool.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that. Yeah. That's you want to talk about who likes numbers, who likes storylines, who likes the games we saw on the screen, regardless of what numbers or however things shook out. We had a lot of very, very exciting games. And that's important as a caster. That's kind of all I really care about is how good of a show are we putting on? How many good matches are we talking about? And the answer for that particular event was quite a few, which is great. It's exactly where you want to be. Or it's exactly where I want to be. I guess I should caveat that.
I'm sure like the games being so like amazing also like makes life a bit easier for you guys. Like I know horror stories of trying to cast over just absolute stomps and being like, hey, what'd you eat for breakfast this morning?
That's true.
It's much easier to hype up hype than it is to hype up garbage.
Well, I am garbage, and Spragels hypes me up all the time. So
look at Doobsnax. Here he goes with the play-by-play.
He's pouring the milk into his cereal.
Complete garbage strategy here, but he is what he eats. There you go. That makes sense.
No, wait. There's no cereal in the bowl. He's pre-pouring the milk.
How about
anyways?
Marv
pre-pouring
going to
the milk
with the rest of Nouns and pouring the milk into his bowl before pouring the cereal and
criminal activity.
Actual activity.
Yeah, get him in Arkham Asylum. Something's wrong.
Something's wrong. We gotta get it figured out.
He's a criminal.
Actual genuine psychopath. What else is there then to chat
Well, we
about?
didn't talk about the grand finals, which, I mean, the grand finals were really interesting, very exciting, of course, because we were watching, history. We were watching the best team in Pokemon Unite get crowned, the best region in Pokemon Unite get crowned. And I didn't expect that we'd come to a grand finals and have it go 3-0. I really didn't think something like that would happen. I think there are a lot of factors leading into a moment like that. But boy, what a showing for Blackhand. I mean, it's not one of those tournaments you can walk away from and go, yeah, but no, they won. They dominated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unequivocally, that's for sure. Without a doubt.
Then if you had to boil it down to just one, I mean, there's a few factors, obviously, but if you were to pick out the most important thing that got Blackhand the win over Top Announce, what do you think it was?
I will say the biggest thing was the our focus on maintaining healthy communications and good mental.
Wow,
that was a big focus of ours. It was super huge. Our entire be careful 2 weeks leading up to the event, almost all that time was spent they spent together, and they spent trying to develop those communication styles.
Yeah,
and a lot of the grand finals was very interesting because I can't speak as an outsider, right? So I don't know if it was as clear to everybody else, but it was very clear to me that both the teams were very, very familiar with each other, right? So it came down to both of us trying to outread each other and just but yeah, the biggest thing I think was the communication for sure, and then also the extremely strong individual performances from Elo and Overlord especially.
Yeah. Elo was popping off, dude. It was so fun.
So what you're saying is that it's the Lazadin difference.
True.
They didn't have you as an analyst, which clearly means they didn't have a chance.
Elo just disappeared one day for 3 hours, and then he just came back and then said, "I go Journey," when we asked him for an explanation, and then ever since that day he was the best Tupa in the world. I do not know why.
Nice. You gotta love that. You gotta love the quest in London to achieve maximum Hoopa. That's sick. Yeah, I mean, if you were talking about morale being a major reason why you guys won, I think you're one of the best assets in the world. I could watch Jungle Book pop-offs after every game win on stage for the rest of my life, dude.
After the game, it was every objective.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, I think Jungle Book needed to have a seatbelt on his stage chair because that guy was going off.
That chest cam was popping off.
Yeah,
my favorite book pop-off is actually Curious that showed it to me yesterday. And it was, I think it was the first or second game in the grand finals where Redmaw engages with a Serena Unite and he full heals out of it and he pops off on the full heal. He knew he nailed it, and then he's just out of his seat with his hand off his controller because he's I just did it. That's it. And then the whole team collapsed on Redmaw. That was the only person they cared about, and then they absolutely beat the brakes off the rest of the squad. But his pop off just on a full heal off the Zarina ult was sick too.
Because he realized that was the turning point of the game.
Oh, without a doubt.
He was cheering because it's one of those things. It's it feels like such a small thing, but it was that one little fork in the road that if you succeed at that, you pretty much have just won the game. So he recognized that, hey, I just popped the full heal, and he's hyped because he's because I'm so good and I nailed that full heal, I've just secured the victory for my team pretty much 100%. You can't do anything else after that.
It felt like every final fight inside of that series was, can we get to Jungle Book? Can we shut this carry down? And they just couldn't do it. So yeah, it was really amazing. I would have just been stoked to actually use a full heal well. I would have been hey, not too bad.
I remember sitting in a call with some friends during those final games, and I yelled out, "Stop Serena ulting my Cinder."
That's awesome.
I don't think Serena ulted
it was so
once.
good.
No, it was really impressive. And then there were moments where, Slash coming in with, it was just, everything was set up to protect Jungle Book, and then the second they realized, like, oh no, it didn't work, they failed, all of a sudden it was over.
It's over.
Yeah, you mentioned Laz. I think it might have been you that mentioned Elo, of course, Overlord's play. But Slash deserves a lot of credit as well. They had it's almost like everyone on the squad picked different moments to just completely just pop off, which of course is exactly the type of team chemistry and what you need to win big events, without a doubt. But it was fun to be able to be in the booth for each one of those as they were happening.
It's almost like they have a good team.
Yeah, crazy, right? World champions.
The best one?
I could still
Crazy.
beat him, I think.
Yeah. Get you in a ring with them, Spragels. They'll show them what's what.
You know what might have been the turning point is before Worlds, I sat down with them and I trolled them pretty good in some games, and they were still able to win. So maybe if they were like, hey, if we could win with this, we could do anything.
That's true. You gave them the confidence they needed. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
Nick still insists
Yeah,
that
that's
the
it.
70k Mamo game that Slash had isn't real. During
No.
the tourney.
Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
Which game was that?
Oh, I was talking about during Spragels' tourney.
Oh,
Slash had like a fucking 75k Mamo game or something like that. It was crazy.
I vaguely remember seeing some numbers for like a 90k Serena at some points during this event. I remember somebody showing me a screenshot that was like somebody who got 90k damage in one game.
There was a 94k Mime game.
Oh, right, that's right.
Yes,
That's something of the
there
94k
was.
mime game. Sorry, not Serena. You're right. Which set was that?
Bruv VX? I don't know.
I
I
think
don't know
it
who it
was
was that got the business end of a Bruv mime, but
I want to say it was Nouns T2.
Noun
game.
versus T2. Oh, wait, was that the game that Nouns lost?
no, because they weren't playing mime yet.
Because so
They
Nouns
didn't play
versus
mime
T2.
until like later on in bracket.
Yeah,
so the first Nouns versus T2, they only played Blissey, I believe.
Yeah, they
I believe.
Yeah, in Nouns versus T2, they played literally the exact same team comp all three games. AG, Snorlax, Serena, Blitzy. Sorry, that's
in
T2.
my
Sorry,
notes.
Nouns didn't. Nouns played Hoopa, Dragonite, Blissey, Lucario with some spiciness between Trevenant and Greedent. There was no Mr. Mime until when they did the rematch, they played Mr. Mime once and lost that game. So
I don't know.
Yes, they played their very first game of the tournament when Bruv was on 300 ping. They did play Mime.
in
Mime
the
is
in the
not
group.
playable on 300 ping, by the way.
I don't know. I've been on the test server. I think I can play Mime at 800 ping at this point. Play
True.
whatever you want. That's true. Hey, the 4 AFK is not too hard.
Oh wow! Nouns brought out the Mime against both iClan and IX and swept those games, and then only benched Mime after losing against T2 in the loser bracket, and then coming back.
You have
That's
no
really
idea how
interesting.
happy I was to see Mime, because Jeff Hoagland is always making fun of me for playing Mime when we try to play our 5 stacks together, and I'm telling him Mime is good. There's something good there, and oh man, I can't wait for this new Mime change. This Pokemon might, honestly, might get pretty nuts here very soon.
Hot
Yeah,
take here.
big buff.
I think that Mime. I know this is gonna be a very, very strong take, but I think Mime has consistently been one of the highest skill cap champions in the game, highest skill ceiling, and I think that if you have somebody who can play Mime to their absolute full potential, I think Mime would be the best Mon in the game right now. But it relies on you having an amazing team and having somebody who is quite literally just a flawless task player playing Mime. It has the highest peak out of any other Mon in the game because of how friggin' difficult it is to play air quotes optimally.
I think it struggles into Hoopa is part of its problem.
That's fair.
If you
Hoopa
notice
is
the
just
games where Bruv did the best, it was against non-Hoopa comps. Specifically, it completely shuts out Snorlax, which is why it kind of struggled into other games. I just think that Hoopa makes it so the Mime damage doesn't stick as well, and Hoopa doesn't really care about the barriers. Its utility will always go through.
What else is there then? We've talked about most of the teams. Are there any other teams that we haven't talked about that were interesting? Secret Chip unfortunately lost out because of the way that the group was done. So Group B had a bit of a controversial break-in kind of thing. So because it was 3 teams and then whichever team had the best score gets out. In Group D, there was a 2-0, 1-1, and 0-2 team. So, of course, the 0-2 team is going to make it in. But in Group B, they had a rock, paper, scissors, where every team beat the next team in the triangle. So they were all 1-1 by the end of that. So it was just which one had the best record in terms of games won, which means Renaissance, who was the number 1 seed in Group B, was 1-1. Secret Ship, who ended up getting eliminated from Group B, was also 1-1, which just feels very... It makes me feel a little uncomfy knowing that that ultimately they had the same record, air quotes, as Renaissance in what matters in set wins, but Renaissance got a chance to get third place in the event, or third place in the event, and Secret Ship didn't even make top 16.
It's true. It's one of the shortcomings of having a 3-team group, which was really unfortunate, not planned. I mean, you add one more game to the mix, there's still chance for tiebreaker situations, but it's a little bit better. The tiebreaker rules that were implemented this time around were a lot better than like regional finals were, and AOS Cup, by the way. They had some really cool, basically points. Yeah, we were gonna have like tiebreaker best of 1 games if it was like a true tie throughout the rest, like without actual tied rankings. So that's nice that there was options put in place. Yeah, it sucks that there was a record, but I mean, you got to perform every single game in this setting, unfortunately. But hopefully it'll be better next year with like wider groups.
Yeah, I hope they add more teams so you can have more. I mean, I would have loved to see a team like Cease get to play more. They didn't get it. It feels like some of them unfortunately just didn't get to play that much. And there's a lot that goes into some of these games. Like you could see some teams were rattled and nervous. I mean, these are huge moments. They're up on this big stage. They know they're on the broadcast. So it's really interesting, and I would love to see these teams have a little longer to play in the tournament for sure.
For sure. I mean, like if you think about it, it really sucks for some of the guys who like literally flew all the way to London and played 4 games of Pokemon Unite. Like, like damn man, like that's
oh no,
crazy.
I don't. Well, Zis played 5 to be fair.
5, okay, sure.
Just did win a game. Zis won a game. Yeah. You gotta give them some
I'm
credit.
less concerned
I think
about
they
the
won a game
number
against
of
IX. I'm pretty sure they actually won a game against IX.
Yes, they did. They won the first game.
Yeah.
They had the 2-0 that series in order to move on. I remember it was a very tense situation. It was the literal last match of group stage, and it was like a huge decider.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if that game had gone the other way? Oh, it didn't actually matter. That last game of IX versus this made literally no difference.
Game 3 didn't matter. Game 2,
because if game 3, they went to game 3, but game 3 reached a point where IX was already up 3-2 and Zis was down 1-3. So even if Zis did win that set, they would have all been 1-1, and you would have had another group B, and Zis would have lost in tiebreakers.
Yes.
Right, they had to win 2 because they got 2-0'd by Nouns.
Yeah. So they had to 2-0 in order to have a chance of making it in, which unfortunately they did not do, and therefore had no chance of making it. That's kind of crappy, actually, isn't it? They still have to play that game 3, even though there's 0 chance of them being able to make it in, right?
Yeah, moments like that are no fun. But it's, obviously they want to go out there and they still want to have a good showing and they want to represent. Their fans were representing hard.
Oh, yeah.
For
they
them
were great.
there, which was really cool to see. But yeah, those moments are a little unfortunate. You would like larger groups. You'd want every team to play more games. But I do have to say, when a team needs their must-win games, when they have to win 2 in a row, there's a lot of excitement around that too. Of course, I want these teams to play more, but at the same time, Secret Ship having to win 2 in a row, Cease having to win 2 in a row, that's very exciting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep. I think that's most of the things that I really wanted to talk about. You guys talked about your experiences. We talked about the games. We talked about what happened outside the event, of visa issues. Pretty much everything that comes to mind.
Do we actually want to talk about Secret Ship a little bit? Because I think we kind of glossed over that topic. It was very interesting.
Sure.
I will say I have a lot of respect for people who decide to try to innovate the meta, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I love me some unconventional picks. Like I said, we had that very interesting Garchomp thing that we never got to pull out. There were a lot of very interesting and cool things that were pulled out of the event, like the Gardevoir. I'm not entirely sure I understood what Secret Ship was doing. I'm not going to say it was outright bad. I'm going to say I didn't understand it.
What
I
the
do
heck?
know that the Blastoise was a mistake. I went back and
really?
checked.
What is that
A
team?
mispick.
No, sorry. I meant the specifically the Rapid Spin on the Blastoise. I went back and checked some of their old scrims. They always picked Hydro Surf.
Hydro
I
Surf,
think he just misinputted the Rapid Spin on stage.
which just sucks. That should not be a thing that you could even do by accident. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I remember the classic Foreign Famous had that really unfortunate. It was like Sludge Heck, not Sludge Heck.
Yeah,
like
on
Sludge Dream Eater.
Gengar, yep.
Yeah, and it's just those moments where you think this is so unfortunate because you can't even have a reasonable game with some of these What was it? What did they go with? Was it Rapid Spin Water Spout or did they go Rapid Spin Pump?
It was Hydro Spin.
Okay, yeah.
So pump spin, yeah.
I
Which,
mean,
like,
I've seen some
isn't
teams run
awful.
it, but it's probably not optimal.
It's much better to do the first one wrong than the second one. Because if you do the first one wrong, you can at least pick into the second one knowing accordingly. But if you pick your second ability wrong, you have the wrong ability. You are just
Yes.
screwed. You
Yes.
can't even play the less optimal set.
To my knowledge, the misinput only happened twice in the entire tourney. At least every other move combo looked sensical. The only other time it happened to my knowledge was Nudo trying to press X speed and accidentally hitting triple axle. Oops.
Yeah. We got triple axle on stage though.
True.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at the RNS versus Renaissance versus Secret Ship games. So pardon my French. What the actual fuck is the Secret Ship picks? What?
I think you wanted to cuss the
Eldegoss,
whole time.
Ninetales, Gengar, Aegis / Blastoise. That just doesn't feel like a team, question marks. Like, with what we know right now of the meta and what's good in the meta, this just feels like trying to meta break, but not like. I think the thing that confuses me the most is not only did they do an unconventional team in Game 1, but they did an unconventional game in Team 2 with 5 entirely different Mons. Only, 2 of which were actually meta through both,
What
both
matchup
of
was
them.
this?
Versus Renaissance. So the Eldegoss, Ninetales,
Secret Ship
Gengar, Aegis / Aegis / Blastoise game 1 was against Hoopa, Venusaur, Serena, Blissey, Gardevoir. You just get stomped every time in that
Okay,
case,
so
right?
Yeah, for sure. So my question was that when they needed to win the 2 in a row to stay in?
No.
That was the
No, that was against
This is the first one.
First game.
This was the
Yeah,
first.
they in the first series decided to pull out a few unconventional comps, and I was just curious what everyone else's thoughts were because I just personally didn't. We're not going to call them outright bad, but I did not really understand.
Yeah,
For sure, so-
game 2, I think, is spicy. Like the picks are actually at least make it a bit more sense. Game 1, I don't understand the slightest, but game 2, where they had Mamo, Duraludon, Blissey, Dragonite, and Azumarill, that it still doesn't make sense. It's a little bit goofy, but I can at least understand what the comp is trying to do there.
Sure. So if I could take just a moment to ping into this. So I think the way I digest the game is perhaps slightly different than most, whether it's competitive players, whatever. I ingest it as a true fan that's not objectively that great at playing the game, right? I just enjoy it a lot. So when I see that stuff, and I guarantee you 95% of the people tuning in are more like me than the competitive bent, they see that lineup go up, don't understand the intricacies of that matchup, but they're just hyped that the Pokemon that they pick every day is on the world stage. And you know what? From a perspective of mine, do I agree or disagree that the strategy is good? No, clearly the numbers are there. It's not a strategy that was going to pan out for them 95% of the time or whatever. But as a caster, and I see that stuff, hell yes. Feed me more, put it into my veins. So that's my perspective anytime I go into this. I think less of how objectively good is this off the rip and more of this is going to be exciting because we don't get to see things like this too often.
Sure.
I think that the big problem is that there were 7 total Mons that were picked one time and lost the game that they were picked on. 4 of them were in the the Renaissance versus Secret Ship game set.
Sure. So would you rather see them than not? Is where I'm at. Like I'd rather. I mean, clearly the team is there. They've earned their right to be there. And if they want to just say, "Hey, these are my favorite Pokemon. I want to do this at the world stage." I mean, they earn the right to do that. Competitive bend or not. I mean, you'd like to think everybody is there to win, whatever, but everybody's motives are different. But I, as a caster, would much rather, or as a caster who is a fan and less of the competitive bend, I would much rather see every Pokemon picked and at least showcased somewhat on the world stage than not have it appear. If that makes sense. Again, this is Kirk's opinion here. This is nothing else. There's obviously no data or anything behind this besides like my warm and fuzzies, but that's where my head's at. So when I see stuff like that, I get amped up. You know, when Spragels and I were casting the first game and we saw the Snorlax come out, we're like, hey, we haven't gotten to do this in a while. We got excited, and I got excited because it's Snorlax is back, you know, and that was kind of like a season 1 throwback, and you know, it got to put on a clinic and it looked great. And I'm sure there's tons of people at home that never set down Snorlax from day one. They saw that and they're like, hell yes, let's get into it.
Yep.
I think,
sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I think strategically, my guess for why a team might pull these picks out is because they know they're going to be running into teams that might not know how to deal with this. I think if they're thinking, look, we could play the meta against them, but we actually do a lot better when we keep our opponents on their heels and they don't know what they're doing exactly. You know, when we kind of try to catch them, surprise them, how are they going to deal with a Duraludon and a Dragonite? The rip's insane. Like, what's the plan there? I'm guessing Secret Ship plays a little bit like that. And then at some point, I mean, I don't know, you're kind of showing off a little. I think you're like, hey, I think we can win with this team. So I think there's probably elements of both, but I would guess a lot of it has to do with playing something that your opponents are not familiar with playing against.
So in League of Legends Worlds, like 7-something years ago, there's obviously going to be a set meta where people are going to run certain things on their teams. But I remember distinctly watching like the quarterfinals of the final bracket, and they're going through their normal picks, and it's like, okay, basic pick, and it comes down to the final pick, and the commentators are like, man, they've kind of worked themselves into a corner. There's no real pick here that kind of makes sense and fits for their entire team. And then you get to see the players starting to laugh and smile at the camera before they pick Teemo. And everybody in the audience lost their collective shits because it was insane.
I was in the audience for that game.
Hey, yeah.
In Chicago.
And
I was losing it. It was awesome.
Everybody was. But that's the thing is that there's a difference between doing an incredibly hype pick and putting in the mons you want to see versus building a team that actually functions. So I think in the League of Legends case, Teemo was like one of there's a couple choices they could have made that would have made sense, but Teemo is like their fan service pick that, yeah, we're doing this for the fans. It's going to be roughly as good as all the other choices anyways, but this one is the funniest. So it's one that's really paying off to the fans. I think that it doesn't nearly work as well if you're doing only spicy picks the entire time and you're building a team that's composed of only the mons that nobody else is taking. And there's definitely credit to be able to say you want to be able to see your mons play in the tournament. But when the mons only see play in one game and that game was a 0 to 851, I think that that Teemo game was a good game. It was a fun, close game, and you got to see some shenanigans. I don't think that we got to see these Pokemon, represent what they can do just because that the team comp that was meant to use it didn't end up working the way they intended. Which I think is much more disappointing. I think bring in the spicy picks, absolutely, bring in the Blastoise, bring in the Ninetales, bring in the Eldegoss. That's exciting and cool as long as you can actually make it work, even like kind of suboptimally. Like that's what I really liked about Game 2, because Game 2 had again another couple of those monsters. You had Azumarill, which didn't see very much play. You have Duraludon. You had Mamoswine. But that team made sense, and it was incredibly hype because you had an unconventional team actually succeed at what it wanted to try doing. They lost the game, but it didn't matter because it was, it still did the thing anyways.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of esports in my life, like years and years and years, and it's less. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was a mistake to bring that composition, but I think it's just that it was a mistake. But it's also just an inevitable thing that will happen in any world championships of any MOBA or an esport that you can pick compositions. Like, one team will try to be that wildcard team because they think it's an asset of theirs. Like, they just believe in the skill diff of their individual players. They believe in the comfort picks on certain Pokemon. It's a gamble that is super against you. Like, the odds are definitely not even close to in your favor, but if it works, it's legendary.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously had faith in the picks. Like, I don't think they were just, like, doing it for fun. Like, I think they had faith in it for a reason. Whether the faith was well-founded or not was kind of shown on stage, unfortunately. But, like, yeah, I don't know. It was a disappointing showing from Secret Ship for sure. I think their fans wanted to see, them win and go farther. I think they were a team that was pretty hyped up, but they also only won one monthly final in their region. Like, other than that, they were like kind of around the mid-level to higher levels. So, they definitely overperformed in regional finals, had a huge peak, and fortunately on world stage it didn't show as much.
Alas.
I want to clarify something. I don't think they made those picks for fan service. I'm with Spragels. I think they believed their largest asset was the wild card and throwing stuff, trying to throw curveballs, kind of a junk ball pitcher in baseball, right? You just throw so much slop that, nobody can really seem to get a handle what you're doing. Same thing as Zoinks says, they made conscious decisions here. I'm saying, as I think the lens at which I look at the game or ingest the game is probably closer to a casual fan tuning in. And when they see their Pokemon, whether they lose the game or not, if they found one moment where that character did something good, that is going to resonate much longer than what that final scoreline is. Because honestly, unless you're a fan of Secret Ship or from the Japanese region supporting that team directly, if you are literally from anywhere else in the world and you see this Pokemon get picked and you see it have a cool KO streak of 2 or whatever, that means something. Does it resonate to, again, the competitive scene and everything like that? No, but we're honestly the minority. We're a huge minority.
True.
So
Very true.
From that lens, again, I'm not trying to put any more into this fan service or anything. I'm just saying, if you are a casual fan that stepped in and you saw your favorite Pokemon get picked and even had a marginal moment in a game despite the game being a complete beatdown, that is more interesting to me than never having gotten to see those characters at all. Or anything, maybe that's the moment they go, man, I do need to come off this character. You know what I mean? And then that's its whole other thing.
We can hope.
And then that's its whole other, revelation that comes out of it. That's what I was working towards there. And I kind of feel like I beat the horse dead here, if it isn't already. So
I would have just if they're gonna do that, I would have just wish they would have committed to it, because after they did the committing in the RNS games, then Secret Ship versus Eternity, it was 3 games of both teams playing the exact same comp, which, it's just like Secret Ship had that kind of they're able to play spicy games. I wish I could have seen more of that if they wanted to play that. Anyways. But
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree 100% with that statement. Yep, I'm with you.
I think my point might have got lost in there, but I think I could beat any of these teams easy.
Yeah, so next time Worlds comes around, we'll make sure that we get the math chord creators all together to play the grand finalists, just to prove that we're actually better than all of them.
The gauntlet.
Exactly. So I think that's good for the episode today. Thank you very much for watching and for joining us on the podcast today. I appreciate having all of you guys come on. And thank you, all the viewers, for coming in and watching. Once again, thank you to our panelists. World Champion Lazadin, please tell us a little bit of where you are, what you're doing, and how people can find you.
We are currently in the process of looking into our organization options. So, I'll probably I'm still on my break, so I'm down low on content for now, but once everything's up, I'll be sure to, or the episode after we get everything sorted out, I'll be sure to advertise everything there. Go check out /Can's Twitter though, like and retweet. We're trying to bring more money into the scene. It's better for everyone.
And World Commentator Spragels, tell a little bit of where we can find you, what you're doing, and all the like.
You can find me over on YouTube and Twitch /Spragels. I make a lot of content about Pokemon Unite. And I'm also looking for a big time org. Pick me up, baby. Let's go.
World's commentator Zoinks. Tell us a little bit of where we can find you, what you're doing.
Yeah. What's up? Pretty much all of my content's posted with Doobsnax on youtube.com/Unite Mics. We got a couple of podcasts there. Mine specifically is called Overdunk. Do a lot of podcasts like this, but I also just do kind of interviews with teams. I've had Events Team on there before and lots of others. So if you're interested to get to know the North America and EU and a couple of other regions as well, competitive teams, go check out the podcast Overdunk.
And last but not least, World's commentator Doobsnax.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Doobsnax, Doobsnax. If Zoinks didn't plug it, at ZoinksCasts on Twitter, at Unite Mics on Twitter, youtube.com/Unite Mics, twitch.tv/Unite Mics. And thank you all so much for having us on. I swear I'm not this disagreeable all the time. Just passionate about Worlds, and I really appreciate you all getting us together to talk about the Worlds experience, because it was definitely a dream come true without a doubt.
I do appreciate the dialogue regardless. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This episode was brought to you in part by Unite DB, the foremost authority on the mathematics and formulas hidden within Pokemon Unite. The Math Cord works hand in hand with them to ensure the most up-to-date information is available to you all. And we hope you appreciate this resource. Check them out at unite-db.com. That's unite-db.com for formulas, patch notes, tier lists, and a comprehensive mechanics FAQ. This episode was also brought to you by the Math Cord Patreon. Specifically, I'd like to give a shout out to Ahara and Turpy and Circa, who support us at the Funder tier, as well as all other patrons at our $5 and $15 tiers who help make this podcast a thing. If you'd like to support us or have your name read out at the end of each Mathcast episode, feel free to support us at patreon.com/mathcord. Thank you all for watching. Have a great one.